Okay, hello everyone. Are we live? Checking the feed. Let's make sure we're getting up and running. And it's still not up. I think it's coming. There it is. Okay, cool. Awesome. Turn that up. Okay, hi everyone. This is Introduction to ABM-based Modeling, Week 8, Unit 6. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to start to see some of the videos from Unit 6. If not, you got time for that. But Unit 6 is really where we start to deal with how to analyze office hours, or how to analyze agent-based models. This is office hours. How to analyze agent-based models. So it's going to talk a lot about how to pull the data in, and this is when there's been a couple questions about using statistical packages over the weeks, and this is when we get into the statistical packages for the first time in a real way, right? So we're going to be using R in the videos, right? But you can use Excel, SAS, SPSS, any jump. Tableau probably, I don't know, right? Like to analyze this kind of data in many ways, right? I use R primarily because it's free, so I want to make sure that everyone who is watching these videos can use it, can download it, grab it, and use it. A lot of the other packages are a lot more money, so that's part of the reason. And then the other reason is just because of the fact that R is actually kind of a programmatic language. It's becoming the default for large-scale data analysis at a lot of companies and a lot of academic institutions. And so I think getting you a little bit familiar with R, if you're not familiar with it, is vital. No matter if you're going to be working with computer modeling, it's vital to have some experience working with R at this point, right? Anyways, so here's so that's the big thing that's going on this week. The other big thing, of course, is that we have the 2 assignments, right, that have come up. So the model design assignment that you've already done, but the important thing is that you need to do your peer reviews, right? The peer reviews are due on Sunday at midnight Pacific Daylight Time, right? So September 2nd, the day before Labor Day here in the United States. And that's at midnight Pacific Daylight Time. That would be also 3 a.m. September 3rd, Monday on Labor Day proper on the East Coast, or 9 a.m. in Central European summertime, right? So that's when the peer reviews are due. You have to do at least 3 of them to get some credit, but of course you can do as many as you want. I saw someone on the forum had started up a contest where they're posting to see how many of the peer reviews they could do. It's always great and useful for sure to do that kind of stuff. Glad you're enjoying doing the peer reviews that much, right? The other thing to mention is that the final project assignment is now up. It is part of the Unit 6.6 wrap-up, right? I believe that's right. Essentially it is going over building your model, right? So the first assignment was, how do I build my model, right? Like a design document describing what the model is going to look like. The second assignment is build the model, right? And the way that this works is that for the, so the question might be asked, well, how will a model be graded, right? Because a model can't just be graded. It's really hard to grade. We probably won't actually get 1,000 model submissions, but if everyone were to submit, it would be on the order of 1,000. It'd be hard to grade all of them uniquely and differently. So instead, we're going to use peer review again, right? And so then it becomes a question of how do peers review each other's assignments, right? Well, what they're going to do is they're going to actually look at your info tab, and they're going to look at what you described in your info tab, and they're going to try and determine if the model you constructed matches the model you described. Right, so that's the way that we're gonna. So you're the nice thing about this setup is it also allows you to set the bar high or low. Right, if you think you can build the best possible model in the world, then go and write up an info tab that it describes the best possible model in the world. Right, and kind of go through all that. Right, and if you think really I'm still starting out, I want to build a simple model that kind of meets a certain minimum criteria that I've set out for myself, then describe that in your info tab. Right. And you should be judged based upon how well you assign it. Now, I did assign a question this time. Let me see if I get this question right. Right. So I am encouraging people to kind of look through the models library for similar models and kind of take that into account when you are answering the questions. And the reason why I mentioned it is just because every now and then we have this case, and very, very rare, but someone just basically takes a models library model and submits it as their assignment, right? And so I don't want that to happen. I much would prefer that you submit a model that is your own efforts, right? And that is your own, even if it's a minimally small model, right? I would much rather see you submit a minimally small model that is your own efforts than submit a model that's just a small tweak of one of the models library models, right? Now, if you're going to take a models library model and add on it to substantially, right, like, and you're going to put in brand new agent types and new methods and everything like that, that's perfectly okay, right? So don't, it's not a matter of not reusing code. In fact, one of the most important parts of agent-based modeling and one of the important parts of software engineering is to reuse code, right? Of course, while giving credit where credit is due, right? But doing it in such a way that actually shows that you've actually learned something from the class, right? And that's the point of it, right? So please, document well what parts of the model you got from other pieces of code, right? What parts of the model you wrote yourself, things like that, and put that into the info tab as well, right? So that helps out, okay? So that assignment is due. Final assignment is due on September 9th. Is that right? Yeah. Hold on, let me double check this real quick. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because it's almost 4 weeks after the first one. Let me double check that due date. Double checking. Okay. Yeah, September 9th at midnight Pacific time, right? Pacific Daylight Time, 3 in the morning on the East Coast. Yeah, 3 in the morning on the East Coast, 9 in the morning in Central European Summer Time, right? And then there will be 2 weeks after that for the peer reviews, and then the peer review will be due on September 24th, right? And the reason why, it seems like, well, we got the peer review assignment on the 2nd and then the final model assignment on the 10th, but really, or the 9th, the final model assignment on the 9th is actually due 1 month after the original model design document was due, right? So that's the reason why they're kind of backed up in that way. Anyways, so hopefully that all makes sense to everyone. That's the goal going forward, and that will allow us to wrap up the course right on time, right, around the end of September, which is the goal, right? So, yeah, okay. So hope everyone's getting this. By the way, as you're watching this, if you have questions, feel free to pop them into the YouTube chat. You can also tweet at me at intro to ABM, right? Just checking real quick to see if any questions have come up on Twitter recently. I don't think so. A lot of them are comments about there were some comments that came into Intro to ABM, but they're mainly comments about how the book, the Intro to Agent-Based Modeling book that I wrote with Ray Walensky complements the course. So that's the main comments that came in there. But so anyways, please get your questions in on Twitter or on YouTube chat as quickly as possible so that I see them before I'm done. Given that, let me go over to some questions that came into the forums and to email during the week. Okay, so IPEC wants to know if there's a way to search NetLogo models library by code. So obviously you by now all know the standard way to search the NetLogo models library, right? Where if you go in, well, I just pulled up the wrong version of NetLogo, but let me get the right version up. Okay. So you can obviously we've talked several times on these office hours in this class about being able to search for NetLogo to find the version that you actually want, of a model, right? But what we haven't talked about is how to actually find instances of code. So for instance, IPEC note points out, what if you want to look at all the examples of set label, right, in the code? So let me show you just the original way. Let's see if this is working. Yeah, it still is. Okay, good. So we have our net logo file here, our net logo window here. Turn off this. Right? And if you remember, if I go to Models Library, and I got to add in another window capture for this. Just give me 1 second real quick because it doesn't show up automatically. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so we've got the net logo models library here, right? And of course, down in this lower left corner, I can type in something like ants and pull up all the models that mention ants, right? Now, the question here was, what if I wanted to look for like label, right? And obviously, that's not the only code that uses set label in it, right? And I can't, if I type in set label, nothing shows up, right? So how do I find other pieces of code that, other models that use that exact phrase, set label, right? So the simple answer is, unfortunately, that there's no easy way to do this, right? Now there is a way, if you have some sophistication at the command line to do this, there's a little tool called grep that you can use, right? So I'll show this to you. You know, this may be more advanced for some of you than others, right? And so not everyone may be able to follow this along, but it is, as far as I know, the easiest way to kind of search for models by code. Now, if you find another way, right, let me know, and we will try to include that. Okay, so this is what's called a terminal window, right? This is on the Macs, this is what it looks like. On the PCs, it's a little harder. On the Linux, it should look almost exactly the same, right? And what you have to do is, first of all, go into your net logo. Oh, I did it wrong. I have to go back to the main application directory, right? So you go into your applications directory on the Macs, then you can go into the net logo directory in particular, right? And if you look inside, there is in any download you have, there is a directory called models. And if I look in here, I'm going to get, this is all the models library models, right? Easiest way is just to show you, if I go into like sample models, right, and I go into art, right, I can now look through all, there's a command called grep, which basically allows us to kind of look for text in files. So I can go grep set label star.nlogo, right, and I can find that Sound Machines .nlogo uses the set label command, right? Now, in fact, I remember, it's been a while since I've done some sophisticated grepping, but I think there's a -R flag. Let's see. No, there isn't. Okay, never mind. So there is a command which I can look up more quickly. It will let you look recursively through all the directories. But if nothing else, you could go to a certain set of directories where all the nlogo files you want are and search for them there, right? So it's another example. I could go to, let's not go to art. Let's go to another one. Let's go to networks. I think there's some ones there, right? So let's see. I want to find all the ones that use the preferential attachment method, right? I can then grep for preferential star.nlogo, right? And you'll see that obviously the preferential attachment in this case seems like it's the only one. And actually, I'm not searching the code there. I'm only finding comments there that show it up. So let's look. What about the generate? I do generate code, right? No, that's still not showing. You know what? These might not be using the network extension, so they're not going to show up. But let's try another one. Let's try something like, let's say I want to find all the ones that create links with, right? Got some of those, right? Sure enough, Team Assembly does it, right? And I can also check create links too, right? And none of them do create links from. Might be some that do create link from. No? Huh. A lot of them are probably using some special breed of links rather than that one. Anyway, so sorry that's not super helpful, Epic, but if you have some sophistication with the oh, there we go, with the command line. It's probably the easiest way to do it, honestly. I don't know of another way, but if someone comes up with a good answer to that, let me know. Let's see. Let's look at the actual question, see if anyone has it. It doesn't look like anybody else has come up with something like that yet. So please help contribute to the forum and try and answer Effect's question for me. So there's been several concerns about, in both emails and in the forum, about the due date of the final model submission being too close. I'll talk this over with Chatika. I've thought that we chose it such that it would be similar to the times we've used in the past. But if it, keep working along, you've still got 2 weeks to work on it, so it's not like it's due tomorrow, right? But I will definitely look into this, and I'll revisit. I'll make sure that we are lining up these dates correctly. It's always possible that I screwed up and entered a date incorrectly, and I'm just repeating that error now, right? So let me double check that. But as of right now, we'll leave it alone. So Erica mentioned that it would be a cool idea to add keywords to the peer review so that we could redirect the models appropriately to other people. I definitely think that, that first of all, it would be useful for people who are not, so the idea, I didn't express her idea very well, Erica's idea. Maybe for this time it won't be possible. Next round of course it would be interesting to ask students to input a few keywords related to the model when submitting their peer review. So the peer review process can be made by people with similar model background. This can provide students with more specific feedback related to model behavior. Maybe this can be done for the model code assessment. I think this is an interesting idea. I'm not sure I want it to happen, actually. And Chatika makes the same comment that I first thought of in the response, which is that really agent-based modeling and this class are about interdisciplinary collaboration, right? And so in many respects, I think it's helpful for this class, right, to have interdisciplinary review going on. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have your code looked at by someone who's knowledgeable in your own domain area, right? Don't get me wrong, because they should, in fact, as when we get into verification, validation, and replication, we'll talk about how validity of a model is really contingent upon getting the audience who you're presenting the model to buy into its beliefs. And you can't get that if you haven't really talked to someone about what your domain area believes about the way you're building your model, right? So I highly, highly recommend someone taking a look at it, right? However, I also think there's a lot of valuable advice that can be gained from having someone who's not in your area looking at it. And because this class is not focused necessarily on publishing models in particular domain areas, but rather in teaching you how to publish models, I definitely like the interdisciplinary combination of it. That being said, there's a practical answer to your question, which is we don't have that technological capability built into the peer review system right now. And unfortunately, we probably can't get it done in time for the final model assignment, but we can review that for next year as a possibility. Ideally, I think it'd be nice if you got like at least one peer review from someone who's working in a similar area, and then two from people who weren't, right, or something along those lines. But I think it's helpful for both you to peer review assignments that are outside your own area, learn how other people might approach modeling, and it's helpful for your assignment to be reviewed by people from outside your area. So I'm not terribly sold on this idea right now. It's interesting, Erica, but I don't think I'm exactly convinced that it's the best solution right now. Happy to have that discussion. Okay. There's also a question about okay, okay, sounds good. So that's all good. Let's see, there was some discussion about the time frames of things, but I think that all got cleared up in the same question. Claudia also emailed to ask, generally I find the course hard to follow time as I do not have any programming experience at all. For example, when to use brackets or not totally puzzles me. The dictionary and program manager are a bit of a help, but still difficult to use if you are a total newbie to programming. I agree, and this is not just being a newbie to programming. This is also somewhat learning the syntax of NetLogo, but it's a syntax. You have to learn a syntax like this. It's not like, how can I put it this way? If you had learned C++ inside and out, and then come to learn NetLogo, you'd still be having some of these troubles because you still have to learn when to use brackets and not. And there's nothing really like I won't say there's nothing we can do. There is some stuff we can do, right? But there's nothing different about the way that a C++ programmer learns that particular constructs than someone who's a new person learns that particular constructs, right? It's just a matter of learning the syntax, and it's much like learning any foreign language. There are certain things where you just have to get down and figure it out, right? And figure out when to use the brackets and when not to, right? Sometimes it's memorizing certain occasions. There are a couple of tricks that I found helpful when learning it myself. Anytime you're sending a set of commands to another agent, you're going to use the brackets, right? So that's why ask uses brackets, right? Because you're sending commands to those turtles. Of also use brackets. Why does of use brackets? Because of is sending a reporter to another agent. It's saying, I want the the heading of this turtle, right? And so it's asking that turtle, give me your heading, right? So anytime you're going to send messages, you're going to use the brackets. There are a couple of other small cases that are similar in some respects, right? And I always forget this, and I always have to look it up myself, right? Let me double check this, right? Let me pull this up. So for instance, while uses brackets, right? If you want to do while t is greater than 10, right? Then you need to use brackets, right? And that's not really passing a message. It has more to do with the fact that it's checking a Boolean condition, right? For each doesn't really use brackets. It actually uses a list, but brackets are created by brackets create lists. So as a result, it also uses brackets, right? Repeat also uses brackets, but that's because it's actually grouping a set of commands together, right? Similar to when you pass it on to others. We've had a couple of questions about this semester, or this course running, and I've had a question in the past as well. There is a Fundamentals of NetLogo tutorial that also is available from Complexity Explorer. Parts of it overlap with the current course and parts don't. But if you want kind of a refresher on some of that stuff, it might be useful to go and check out that tutorial as well. Right? I can also think about how we might add some videos in the future, specifically talk about NetLogo syntax, since that question has come up. Unfortunately, it's a hard topic to discuss because really it means looking up each and every command. And here's the thing, and actually I just read this on Reddit the other day on one of the programming forums, right? The most fascinating thing that if you ever follow around like a very sophisticated programmer, the most fascinating thing is that they're going to use Google, Stack Overflow, and the programming dictionaries of whatever their language is, almost as much as a beginner programmer does, right? They're just using it for more sophisticated things, right? But my point is that this is not stuff that you should just have memorized, right? You should have to go and look it up in the dictionary at times, right? And as you get more and more experience, some of it will become natural, and then you'll be looking up at other commands, right? But the amount of time that a good programmer spends consulting documentation doesn't really go down as they get more experience. It's just that they're looking at more sophisticated documentation, right? So this is a skill in and of itself that you should be learning as you go through this process. Okay? So sorry it's been tough, but hopefully hopefully those tools can help you. And my suggestion is don't get frustrated about it. It's something everyone is doing. So Lowell had a question. I've been taking this course to supplement my existing research and development of ABM, but I've been developing in MATLAB and Python, as those are language we do in research. I took a quick look at the final submission page. Just want to see if this work is going to work if I submit my work in the form of M files from MATLAB. I've been doing a bit of NetLogo for the assignments exam, but really had never intention of using outside this course. So unfortunately we can't take them in MATLAB, right? I mean, the truth of the matter is that we have to standardize the format you submit in, right? Because everyone is going to be graded based upon what they turn in. That means, if you don't want to turn in the final assignment in NetLogo, right, then that's fine, right? But it means you won't get any credit for the final assignment is what it comes down to, right? If you want to, one thing you could do, if you're building a very sophisticated model in MATLAB, and you want to build a smaller version of it or a minor version of it in NetLogo and submit that for your final assignment, I think that's a great idea, right? In fact, I would highly recommend doing that no matter what language you're working in, right? And even when I work in NetLogo, I'll often write stuff in Python or in Repast or in other languages as well, just so that I have the ability to kind of say, well, what happens if I change the paradigm of what I'm doing? And we're going to get into, in Unit 7, we're going to get into discussions of verification, validation, and replication. One of the dimensions of replication that you can do yourself is to rebuild your model in another language, right? Because languages all have their own syntax and style, like we just talked about in the answer to the last question, and trying to adapt your model to that syntax and style as opposed to the conventions of your current language actually help you think about the model in new and different ways, right? Really what we want is we want a translation of our conceptual model into an implemented model in an interesting and thoughtful way, right? And theoretically, we should be able to have a conceptual model that can be implemented in NetLogo, MATLAB, Python, Repast, C++, and it should still generate similar results, right? And so trying to implement in these other places is very helpful as they go. So that would be my suggestion, Lil, is unfortunately you can't turn them in MATLAB because none of the peer reviewers will have any idea what to do with it, right? So you have to turn it in NetLogo. If you don't want to turn it in at all, you can still not turn in the final assignment and still get credit and enough credit in the class to get your certificate. That's definitely the case. But what I would suggest you do is come up with a smaller version of the model or a miniature version of the model, a stripped down version of your model, and submit that for your final assignment. Okay? So I think that's all the questions today that I want to talk about from forum and email. There's a couple that have come up on YouTube chat, so let me, if you want to look at it. So, one, it turns out that Chatica came up with a solution to my recursive searching problem. So again, this is a little technical, but let's say I want to look through all the models and all the model libraries to find all the examples that no, I put an extra dash on there. That all the examples that include a set label, right? So Chatica, the thing I forgot is I forgot this dot and dash include flag, right? Oh, no, I still got the syntax on that slightly wrong. Yeah, I got you. Okay. The include flag actually specifies what I did the other way around. So I want to include no, oh, still not working for me. Check out grep real quick. Dash include. Yeah, okay. Let's try that. I had it right the first time. It is a double dash on the include. Even I mess up the syntax on this thing. There we go. Oh. There we go. Okay. So the exact syntax of that command after a little debugging, right? And this is actually going through all the models and all the models library, finding all the examples of set label is the following. So it's grep -r -include star.netlogo set label period to tell it to go through all of them, right? So that actually winds up looking through all of the models for the models library. Again, it's a little bit tricky. You got to know the command line enough to even get to that point to get there. But for those of you who know how to do that, it kind of gives you another tool in the toolbox, right? So Lisa's asking a question: am I interpreting correctly that the model we end up submitting for the final need not operate in a flawless way? It's okay to submit a work in progress that shows that we're trying to apply what we have learned. Lisa, I want to take apart the word flawless in two senses there. First, in order to get perfect credit for your model, it does have to work, right? It does have to run and do everything like that, right? So don't submit a model that when you hit setup it crashes. Right? Is basically what I'm saying. You will get some credit for the model even if it crashes, right? There's some questions that give you credit regardless, but it doesn't have to be exactly the model that you had envisioned to develop. And if that's what you mean by flawless, then the answer is yes, right? And it's definitely a work in progress, right? So I could imagine a model that you had set up or that you had planned that has 5 agent types, and they have 5 link types, and they're sharing multiple pieces of information across them. And in the end, by the time the deadline comes along, you wind up with 2 agents with 1 link type between them, right? That's perfectly okay, right? As long as like I said, you're graded on how well the info tab description of your model matches what the model does. And so just make sure those are in line, right? So hopefully that answers your question, Lisa. Let me know if it doesn't. Madi asks, in general, is there any way to share the result or visualization we make in Netlog with someone who doesn't have the software installed? Is it going to be covered in the next few weeks? I don't know if I cover this or not. There is ways to share the graphic results, right? So we will talk about how to take your data from running the model many times, output it into a spreadsheet, and then analyze that in something like R, right? So that definitely exists, right? And then you can get a graph that graphs your results, right? I don't believe I talked about how to actually show the NetLogo model. Now, one thing you can do is there's something called NetLogo Web. And so NetLogo Web, I don't know if we can show this. I think there is a discussion about NetLogo Web in the final unit of the class, Unit 9. But let me bring up, okay, hold on, let's see. Let me bring up NetLogo Web. Okay, so one more on this, right? Google, Chrome, NetLogo. Okay. So there is NetLogo Web, right? And it doesn't work completely, but you can upload a model to it. So you can take one of your models and upload it, and then you could show someone your model in that software, right? And then you can export the result to an HTML. So for instance, let's say, just take one of the ones we've been playing around with for a while, traffic, basic, right? So let's say I've modified my traffic basic model. I'll do a small modification just so you can see, right? So let's say I want to, let's say I'm going to make most of the cars green instead of blue. This is just to show you that I can change it and I can do it. So I have to hit the recompile code button. And then when I'm done, I hit setup. Right, and now I have green cars instead. But obviously I can make much more powerful changes. So then when I'm done with it, I can hit File, HTML. I can hit Save as traffic basic.html, and it will save to whatever my default download directory is at traffic basic.html. And I can then open that file. I can send that file to someone else, and they can open it. It will pull the necessary components off of the web, and they can then run the traffic basic.html, right? So that's one solution, right, to visualizing or sharing, right, with someone else. You can also, of course, there is the NetLogo Modeling Commons. And so if I upload my model to the NetLogo Modeling Commons, right, I can run the model in NetLogo Web right here. A lot of models will crash. Let's see, I just chose one randomly. So let's see, I'm not sure how it'll work. So I could send somebody here as a way as well to kind of look into it. May not work in this case. In fact, it says run 0 times, which gives me credit to believe it. Oh, it actually pulled up. Okay, food, web, the Algerian desert. It's set up. Oh, it seems to actually work, right? So I could share my model this way as well. There's one final way, which is that you can actually create a video of your own NetLogo model, right? And you could actually just use standard screen capture software like Camtasia or something like that to do that. There's also a built-in functionality, and it's not really built-in. There's a coding functionality in NetLogo that lets you do that. So let me pull up the NetLogo window. Right, okay. So here I have NetLogo. Let me just pull up the movie. So there's an example called movie recording example. That's a NetLogo model, right? And so if you go to the models library and type in movie, you'll find this, right? It's called movie. Let's see. Shoot. I'm gonna grab this one. This is called movie recording example. Right? So if you look at the code, what it does is use this extension called vid to actually record the movie, and in this case, it's recording the video. And basically, what you say is, when it starts recording, you record the view, and every tick, if it's still recording, you record the view. And essentially, what it's doing along the way is it's grabbing screenshots of the model as it runs, right? And then when you're done, it's going to put all those screenshots together and save them off. So, for instance, I can hit setup. So you can see it. It's setup. Hit start recorder. Hit go. And have the model run for a little bit. And then at a certain time, I can hit stop. I can save recording. It's going to save it to .mp3 format. Let's just put it on my desktop. Example MP4. Sorry. Export it. Okay. So now I can go over to my desktop, double click on it. You're not seeing all this because I'd have to add a bunch of screens in. But I will show you what it looks like in the end once I get it up and running. Bringing up my MP4 player. And now, hopefully, bring up a window capture. Okay, and there we go. Oh. Okay, now it's running. Let's see, it's called Math. Why am I not seeing it? Of course I'm not seeing it. Okay, let's try it again. Window capture. Okay, so here it is. Here's my movie up and running again. So there you go. Now you can see the model, the capture I made of the model actually running, right? So if you wanted to record your own model, what you can do is you can basically just go into this example and copy a bunch of the code for resetting and recording and everything like that, and then putting it into your own model, and then you get your own way to capture your own model, right? Honestly, it's probably easier with a lot of the sophisticated kind of desktop recording software now to just kind of do it yourself, right? The only nice thing about this method is that literally because it's hooked up to the code, you're going to capture a very clean version of it with a screenshot for every tick, essentially, right? And so that's going to be a much cleaner version than a lot of the desktop recording software. Okay. So hopefully that helps answer your question, Madi. So So Mohammed asked the question, does NetLogo offer all the probability distributions? Well, simple answer is no, because people have come up with new probability distributions all the time, right? But the longer answer is that it offers enough probability distributions that you can create every single one. So Mohammad's specifically asking about the Weibull distribution, and I believe that the Weibull distribution is actually composed, has a different format. I think I've created it before in NetLogo myself. Can't remember. There's a way to create the Weibull distribution from other distributions. Let me find it. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I'm having trouble finding it right now. I want to say that there's a relationship between the Weibull and like gamma or the log normal or something like that, and there's a way to basically create gamma distributions and then create Weibull out of it. Let me look at the NetLogo. So the NetLogo dictionary actually will tell you which distributions there are in there, right? Because you can just look at all the random, because those are the distributions that will be in it. So there's exponential, float, gamma, normal, Poisson, and that's it, right? But I believe that almost most other distributions can actually be created by specifying different variables to those distributions and like adding them and subtracting them and stuff like that. I don't remember correctly about how to create the Weibull distribution off the top of my head, but I believe there is a way to do that. I'd have to look into that a little bit more. Also, is our package mapped to NetLogo in a certain way that could be used in the analysis phase? Yes, that's what Unit 6 is about. So you'll see that in Unit 6, right, where we exactly go through that. And in fact, there's something called our NetLogo that will allow you to more tightly couple the two packages. But here in Unit 6, we're going to talk about how to take the output and look at it. Yeah. So it looks like that's all the questions. I hope that helps. If there are additional questions, right, then feel free to answer, free to send them along. See, a couple of the Made said the move recording example works, and that's great for what he was looking for. Lisa says that my answer about having a perfect NetLogo model makes sense. She said there may be agents walking through walls, turtles walking through walls, but it shouldn't run. Yeah, that's fine. Like, we understand there's probably going to be some bugs, right? And you don't need to iron out all the bugs to get a good enough credit, okay? So hopefully that helps. I guess on my plate to do is to look into the deadline, make sure that we're kind of setting it up right to end at the end of the course, and I'll double check those dates. But right now, it stays the way it is. Usually it's set up so that the deadline is just before the last unit, and I think that's what we're doing right now, right? So in 2 weeks, we should be just before Unit 9 being done, right? Because we still have 2 more weeks of the class after the deadline passes, right? So I think that's correct. I can look in. I'll double check again and look into it. But remember again that you still got 2 good weeks to work on this, and hopefully you've been working on it for the last 8 weeks. So you'll have had 10 weeks to work on the modeling code by the time it's done. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be super polished. We just want to see the best thing you can do in 10 weeks. Okay. So keep working through Unit 6. Make sure you do your peer reviews for the model designs. And with that, if you have any additional questions, let me know. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you next week. Take care.